naira. Plus, the president didn't make an issue of it. There were about 13 billion naira worth of projects proposed by the executive that were taken out of the budget completely. It's all of these funds that were put together to fund, and then instead of reducing the deficit by the 110 billion that was agreed, only half of that was applied to reducing the deficit. And the other half was added to this pool of funds amounting to about 578 billion naira to fund the projects that they introduced into the budget.
Honorable member, obviously these are now the DG's statements indicate that there was an agreement before the passage of the budget, and then when the budget was passed, almost all of the components of the agreement were shifted in a particular direction without consultation of the executive. First of all, is that true? And second of all, what does that say about the level of cooperation between the two branches?
Yeah. Let me start from where you just end up, level of cooperation between us. I am happy that at least somebody has honored to say that we have been consulting, except that probably we've agreed on something, like in this particular case, and the sharing formula, and that 1% we added did not go to the National Assembly. He did mention that we now put that money to fund the health, something
right,
which
that's
is
one component.
That
right.
is what.
Yeah.
Again, when he talks about the 345, it will tantamount to as if that money was taken to the National Assembly's funding project. No. Director Budget is aware that there are 15 roads, I can mention them one by one, that contracts were awarded and they were not funded in the 2018 when we are doing consideration. And so all those deductions that amounted to 345 that we cut from those is in the same that vein in the capital that we added. He is fully aware that there are so many, like the West-East Road or the East-West Road, we added. There are, I can mention if time can permit, but refer people to our responses. We pick them one by one and show where we increase it. And again, so what I'm trying to say, the idea being portrayed, we had 175, and then we have now taken 345, added to, and it is a project we conceptualize. I think this is where we need to, for the public interest.
Right. Now, let's be very clear here. Just a small point of correction on the East-West Road. That was one of the projects that was cut, not added to. I'm aware that the Second Niger Bridge, East-West Road, Boni-Bodo Road, the funding of the takeoff of Maritime University, Mambila Hydropower, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and even the national housing program cut by 8 billion. Several projects were cut. And the question that I want to get to here is, if the National Assembly was interested in making sure that development is brought to the grassroots via the 578 billion naira worth of new projects they introduced to the budget, then why did they deem it necessary? Why did your assembly deem it necessary to cut from some of those really essential national projects?
Good. I took that correction. I was wanted to mention another road that I said East-West Road. It's among the about 7 or so projects that we cut. The total cut that we did there was only 1.78% of that total. When you now mention the Second Niger Bridge, the Mambila Power Plant, counterpart funding, the East-West Road, Boni-Bodo, all this, when you total up, it's about 222 billion. And what is contained in the budget that Mr. President signed is about just 3.95 billion short of that. So that should amount to about 218 or thereabout. So when you now apply it as a percentage, it's 1.78% that was taken. That's 3.9 billion. So that money was the one that we took to prepare ground for the 15 road with the executive already had awarded contract.
So out of the 578 billion that was added for the National Assembly's projects, it could not be a part of that major envelope?
Sir, it's not 500. That is the point I'm trying to say. I agree with the 175. Then that envelope of 100 billion was already agreed. Because we're not talking about that. We are talking about the proceeds of the increment on the benchmark price of $6. $1, we know where it goes. So the remaining $5, we already agreed with the executive that $2 will come to the legislature, which is translated to that 175. And then the remaining $3, they have a sharing ratio.
Very quickly, I know in our conversation yesterday with an honorable member, and again today, the response has been the money is very minuscule. Now the question comes up, if you talk about counterpart funding, if you take even 50 naira out of a counterpart fund, the other partner in the agreement can of course say, look, you have not brought your part, therefore we will not bring our part, therefore we will not continue with the project or start the project. What do you have to say about some of those critical projects like Mambila that require that funding?
You see, when we conceptualize an estimate and there is a counterpart funding of a project, you first take into consideration the terms of engagement. Are we providing the counterpart funding 100% ab initio? Which no project is being done like that. There is a project cycle and there is a budget cycle.